Dan Illman, Mike Beer, race number 7 on Breeders' Cup Friday is the Dirt Mile. Let's take a look at this field, and there are some salty runners going for that $1 million purse. A field of 10. The morning line favorite, Mike, is the number 6, More Spirit, who was a Grade 1 winner at 2, never really reached his full potential at 3, but has come back firing at 4. His Metropolitan Handicap was one of the more visually impressive performances of 2017. That's the good thing.
Yeah.
The bad thing is, where has he been?
That's a very good question. I guess it's the one that you really have to answer if you want to bet him as the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. You have to answer that one. You also have to answer, sort of, not only where's he been since the Met Mile, but where did the Met Mile come from? I mean, he's always been a good horse, but he's never been that kind of horse. That was a really impressive win. And I say that even when you sort of take into account in that race that, Sharp Azteca went to the front. This horse went to the front with him. And then nobody else really ran in the race. It was only those two. But there's no denying that he ran a huge race that day. Can he run it again off of a 146-day layoff in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile? I don't know, and I'm not so sure I want to take him as the favorite to find out, but he's the horse to beat.
Seems he's working every week or so, 6 furlongs out of the gate. Does that bother you? It's sort of an unorthodox preparation scheme for the Breeders' Cup.
I mean, it's not something that you see very often, that's for sure. And maybe it's not a great sign for him, but I don't see why it's a real problem. It's not like he's a bad gate horse and Baffert's trying to correct something. I don't know why he's working him out of the gate, but I also don't really care about it.
The horse that he beat in the Metropolitan Handicap might prove his main competition in the Dirt Mile. Let's take a look at the Timeform U.S. Pace Projector, where we see Sharp Azteca, the number 3, second in the Met Mile, but has the important recency since then. Dominant winner of the Monmouth Cup. Fairly dominant winner of the Kelso Handicap last time out. He's going to make the lead according to Timeform US. I agree with that assessment. Is More Spirit going to be pushing? I would think he is, fresh off the bench.
I would think he is too. I mean, that's exactly how the Met Mile shaped up, and maybe this race will shape up the same way. Of course, this is a 2-turn mile and not the 1-turn that they had in New York. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the pace set up this way. Sharp Azteca, to me, I mean, there's just no reason for them not to be going in this race and try and make the front and try and wire this field. He did win around 2 turns, 2 starts back. He didn't beat a great field that day, but he did show that he can get to 2 turns. I thought he ran fine in the Kelso last time. That was just sort of a moderate early pace, and then once again, he was better than those horses. I think it's tougher for him this time.
That red bar on your pace projector indicates that this race is expected to have a fast pace. It could help mid-pack runners and late closers. The number 8, Accelerate, went gate to wire in the San Diego Handicap, a day perhaps more known for the fact that Arrogate didn't show up, then pressed the pace in the Pacific Classic last time out before finding 1.25 miles just a little bit too far for trainer John Sadler. We have a John Sadler formulator fact for Accelerate. Past 3 years, older dirt routers off this kind of a layoff in graded stakes, 44%, a 308 ROI. We know that Stellar Win likes a little time between races, and I wonder if Accelerate will benefit from the little break after the Pacific Classic. Plus, he has shown that he can come from off the pace.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if all those wins are Stellar Win in that sample. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I guess I feel like I could go either way on this horse, Dan. I get that it looks like he's really improved in his last 2 races. He's run a couple of big figures, and they're both over this track, too. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know how much I'm buying into him as a 109 or 110 horse, but maybe he's just really improved at the right time. I think the thing that you like about him in this race maybe is that he can get the trip in this Dirt Mile that he got in last year's Dirt Mile. Sort of off the pace, he was able to save some ground. He did his very best in that race, but he wasn't good enough, and he got 3rd, and he's maybe an improved horse since then. On the other hand, I think this year's Dirt Mile is a lot tougher than last year's Dirt Mile, so he'll have to bring every bit of that improvement to beat this field. And I don't think he's that great a price online. I don't know. For some reason, I can't buy into this horse. Am I wrong about that?
He loves Del Mar, and I think you have to give him extra points for that. His San Diego, Arrogate didn't show up, but he would have had to have had him nailed on tight, I think, to beat Accelerate that day. And something in the Pacific Classic, I thought he ran pretty well. Not threatening, but 1.25 miles is too far. Practical Joke, we've had some talented 3-year-olds this year. I think you could make the argument that Practical Joke's one of the most naturally talented of the group. While he ran 3rd in to Haskell at a distance a little bit far for him, around 2 turns. All of his wins have come around 1 turn. Now he must break from a tough outside post going 2 turns. Do you put stock into the whole 1 turn versus 2 turn thing, or are you going to simply say a mile's a mile and that's this horse's game?
No, I think you know that I do think there's a big difference between 2 and 1 turns, and maybe he's just a much better 1 turn horse, but I want to give him at least some consideration at the mile. I know it's 2 turns and maybe he's just way better around 1, but the mile I think is the perfect distance for this horse, and any pace that develops really helps him. Not that he has to be, you know, way out of it and make 1 run, because he's a very handy horse. Joel Rosario rides him perfect, but I could ride this horse perfectly. He puts you where you need to be in a race, and I think he'll be in a great spot. Post 10's not great, but they're going to go fast. They're going to stretch out. He's going to be able to land a spot in this race, and I think he has a real chance to win.
This will be his first time against older horses, but he's coming out of a real live race. The signature race for 3-year-old sprinters, the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. Practical Joke got a beautiful trip and ride to win that race. He beat 2 next out 107 Buyers speed figure winners. He's always had the talent to win a race like this. Awesome Slew, the number 5. That red bar on the pace projector said fast pace. Anytime you have a fast pace, Awesome Slew has a puncher's chance. Here's a formulator fact for his trainer, Mark Cassie. Past 5 years, last out dirt winners, going 3rd off the layoff, 27% in a 4.49 ERA. Return on investment.
I got you.
Last time out in the ACAC, though, he was 3-5. He won like a 3-5 shot should. He was flattered somewhat when the player came back over wet ground to win the Fayette at Keeneland with a 97 Buyer speed figure. Listen, the Met Mile, on that day, he was no match for More Spirit and Sharp Azteca. You take that race out, he's there in just about every one.
Yeah, and in the Met Mile, that was just, what chance did he have in that Met Mile? There was no closing going on that race. I actually felt like he was a sneaky good 4th in that race, even though he was 10 lengths out of it, and he's run well since then, as you said. I mean, I think he's a really good horse, and, you know, he's another one. 1 turn probably better for him, but he's won around 2 turns before and run his race around 2 turns before, as opposed to Practical Joke we already talked about. I think he really is more of a 1-run closing kind of horse, though, so he really wants this pace to develop in front of him.
Cupid won a week edition of the Gold Cup at Santa Anita back in May to the tune of a 108 Buyer speed figure, and he had a perfect trip tracking a 3 or 4 ply pace battle to boot. I would have thought that off that race, Bob Baffert would have thought bigger and better. Instead, Baffert gave him time, and he ran him back, perhaps to get a race over this track and this distance in the Brubaker, where he had to work very hard. I was really disappointed in his performance as the Awesome again last time out against Mubtahij. I guess turning back in distance can help, and this will be the best price you're going to get on Cupid probably in a long time.
No, that's true. You will probably get him at a fair price in this race. To me, he's pretty hard to like. He does have that one race, that Gold Cup that you were talking about. You know, he sort of sprung a little bit of a surprise and won that day. Boy, I don't like his 2 races since then. I know he got it done 2 starts back, and he was fine that day. That was an ugly stretch run from him last time.
Battle of Midway, like Cupid, a stakes winner over track and trip over the summer. He beat fellow 3-year-olds in the Shared Belief. The Oklahoma Derby, the first 3/8 of a mile, was a rough run for Battle of Midway, who was in and among horses, and Flavian Pratt really couldn't get position until midway on the back stretch. Then he was fine, and it looked like once he made that bid turning into the stretch, he was on his way. It's tough to get outrun by Untrapped at 1 1/8, the horse that had been saying to everybody he didn't want any part of that distance. Is it possible Battle of Midway, despite being 3rd in the Kentucky Derby, didn't want any part of that distance either?
I think it's certainly possible. I think he's a horse who can benefit from getting cut back to 1 mile. I still don't care for that loss from him last time, but he can benefit from getting cut back, and he's run some good races. You know, he's a big price in this race. I don't think he's totally impossible, but boy, he's going to need a lot of things to go right to come out on top here.
I'm Iron Fist's biggest fan. He's closing in on $1 million in earnings. He's won 3 out of his last 4 starts, although I think that's more to do with being masterfully handled by Steve Asmussen and finding the right spots. This just seems a little tough, but he's the kind of horse that works out good trips, and he draws a nice inside post.
He's got a great post. He can sit right in behind the speed in here, and then we'll see if he can sort of try and make a run at this thing and at least get a piece. He is 4 for 5 in his career over a 2-turn mile. The one loss, however, was when they sent him in against More Spirit. More Spirit just drilled him at Lone Star. He's just not really this kind of a horse, and you're right that Asmussen campaigns him very well, finds good spots for him, and I think in most years, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is a great spot for this horse. This year, it might not be a great spot for him.
Giant Expectations looked good winning the Grade 2 Pat O'Brien. I didn't think it was a strong Pat O'Brien field, but if you watch the head-on of that race, he must have been 6-7 path on the backstretch, floated wide all the way around, and still won fairly easily.
Yeah.
He likes this surface. Last time out, they turned him all the way back in the Santa Anita Sprint. That distance is far too short for him.
Yeah.
Here's my problem. I needed to see some run. He did nothing. How is that race a good prep for the Dirt Mile?
It would have been nice, not only if he had done any running in that race, if anybody besides Roy H had done any running in that race. Yeah, that was a disappointing performance. He does get the three-quarter excuse, so I think that is too short for him. This distance is better, but he does have to improve.
One of the longest shots on the board, if not the longest shot, will be the 4 Gato del Oro. This is a 3-year-old who set the pace in the Oklahoma Derby. I understand why Richard Baltas is removing the blinkers.
Yep.
The presence of Sharp Azteca and more spirit pretty much indicates this is going to be a good pace. And if Gato del Oro is battling with those types of horses, he will pay the price.
Yeah, that's true enough. I mean, he's an okay horse, and he's very lightly raced, but he's never run a race that's going to win this.
Pick time for the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. You're going with Practical Joke. I mean, this is just a horse with immense talent, and I think he's going to break, try to drop in towards the back of the pack, save as much ground as possible going to the first turn, and hope they go hot and heavy early. Yeah,
I think all those things are true. That's all those reasons that I like him, and just the fact that, you know, I didn't really want to take a short price on More Spirit. It was the horse to beat. Even if Practical Joke works out the right trip, it's not going to matter if More Spirit runs his Met Mile. I'm just not totally convinced that More Spirit's going to run that race.
Mike's going to go 10, 6, 5, and 3. I'm just going to trust Baffert here. I mean, you usually don't put good, sharp horses away unless there's some sort of an issue. But I'm going to trust Baffert here. A lot of 6 furlong gate works to keep this horse fit. The last one looked pretty good. And if he can sit off Sharp Azteca, get the jump on these horses turning into the short stretch, I think he's got a big shot as a fairly underlaid price, unfortunately.
Yeah,
6, 3, 8, and 10 for me in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Race number 7 at Del Mar on Breeders' Cup Friday is an approximate post time of 3:05 Pacific. Good luck.